for years and years and years over at Berkeley, they studied the process of attachment. And they did those, I don't know, many of you probably saw them in school, those experiments with children, with like 1 to 2 year old children, and the mom brings them into a room, and there's toys there and a couple chairs, and then a stranger comes in and sits down, and then a few minutes later, without any warning, the mom gets up and leaves. And so the child is left with this stranger in the room, and then they watch and see what the child does when the child comes back. And they figured out when the parent comes back. So mom comes back, and they watch the child's reaction, and they figured out that they could tell what the child's attachment status was by the reaction that the child had when mom came back. So they learned, here's what we need to observe, and we can see, like, what's the health of this child's connection with mom? So they studied this forever, and then they started visiting parents at home and watching them interact with their kids. Then they started talking to the parents about their life experiences, and they figured out that they could tell from the parents' ability to tell a coherent narrative about their childhood experiences what the attachment status of their child was going to be, even if the child hadn't been born yet. They could predict the attachment status of the child in 1.5 years, in 2 years, where it was going to be, just based on this narrative. So they started looking really hard at what's called the Adult Attachment Interview, the AAI. Please shake your hand. So, sorry, this is a repeat for some of these guys. And so what they learned about is it's not what your experience has been in life that influences your relationship and your child's attachment with you. It's the level of understanding you have about your life story and your experiences, your life. It doesn't matter if mom grew up in an abusive situation in Calcutta, or if mom grew up in Woodside in every comfort. What matters is that she, and sorry dads, but they only studied women, but I'm assuming this works the same way. It's what does she understand about her experience? And the places where each of us are incoherent in our narratives, the spots in your story that are hard to tell, that still have a lot of emotion stuck to them, that are very painful, those places are spots where things get hard for you in your parenting relationships. You learned to be a parent while you were being parented. And if you want to do something different, you gotta swim upstream a little bit against that. But the adult attachment interview changes. You can do things. In fact, everybody in this room does things to improve their own and other parents' narratives. Every 5 minutes you spend listening to a parent talk about their experience, their life experience, moves them forward in their personal narrative. You are actually making it easier for people's children to have good connections with their parents every time you take a few minutes to give them your full attention. So you can change the status of someone's narrative, maybe a tiny bit on the bus on the way home, maybe a whole lot, an hour a week in a listening partnership. And you change the way their brain is wired, You change their ability to connect with other people as they have more peace about the coherence of their personal narrative. So when you think about how limits were set for you, and you think about, gee, where does this get hard for me setting limits? Those are fertile places for you to be working on your own narratives or helping people work on theirs.